Some people do everything right: 8 hours of sleep, a quiet weekend, a proper vacation with nowhere to be and nothing due. And they still wake up Monday morning feeling like they never stopped. We have entire industries built around this: supplements, sleep trackers, protocols with 6 steps and a cold shower, podcasts dedicated to the perfect morning routine. We talk endlessly about burnout, insomnia, chronic fatigue. There are diagnoses and frameworks and entire communities built around each one: books, retreats, entire medical subspecialties dedicated to fixing the broken sleeper. But this particular experience, the one that lives just underneath all of those labels, barely gets named. It's not dramatic enough to be a disorder, not mild enough to just push through. It doesn't show up cleanly on blood work. It doesn't qualify for much of anything. It just sits there, quietly, year after year. And here's what nobody tells you: the exhaustion that doesn't lift after rest isn't a sleep problem. It's a nervous system that was never taught it was safe to stop. Picture this: it's your childhood. You're 8, maybe 10 years old, and the house you live in has a feeling to it. A texture in the air that you learned to read before you could put words to it. Not always loud, sometimes perfectly quiet. But that quiet wasn't peaceful. It was a pause before something shifted, before the mood in the room changed, before you had to figure out fast what version of things you were walking into today. Maybe it was unpredictability, a parent whose emotional state you had to track before you even took your coat off. Maybe it was pressure, the kind of home where achievement was the price of stability and stillness meant you were already falling behind. Maybe it wasn't dramatic at all. Maybe it was just a culture, a family, a set of unspoken rules that treated rest as something you had to earn, and the bar for earning it kept quietly moving. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Research found that approximately 38% of adults who met clinical criteria for adequate sleep duration still reported significant daytime fatigue, not a fringe result. More than 1 in 3 people sleeping enough hours and still running on empty. The body was getting the hours. Something else wasn't getting what it needed. And what that environment built, quietly, efficiently, without anyone intending it, was a nervous system calibrated to stay on. Not because anything was wrong with the child, because the nervous system was doing exactly what nervous systems are designed to do: reading the environment, responding to the information it kept receiving, staying alert, staying ready. You learned to stay ready, and you never stopped. Here's the first thing that happens inside a person shaped by that kind of environment. At some point, they absorb a belief, not consciously, not as a decision, just as a conclusion the nervous system reaches on its own after enough repetition. The belief is this: if you stay on top of things, you'll be okay. Stay ahead. Track everything. Don't let anything slip through the gaps. And for a while, that belief works. It produces results. It feels like control, and control feels like safety. But staying on top of things has no finish line. There is always another thing. The list doesn't complete. The monitoring doesn't end. And the nervous system, which has been running quiet background surveillance this entire time, never receives a clear signal that the threat has passed and it's allowed to stand down. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, but people who carry it don't call it anything. They call it being responsible, being thorough, being the person who remembers what other people forget because someone has to. Now, it doesn't feel like a wound from the inside. It feels like a work ethic, and it shows up in ways that look completely unremarkable from the outside. They can't watch television without doing something else at the same time. The stillness feels wrong, feels wasteful, feels like something important is slipping by unnoticed. They feel vaguely guilty sitting down before the work is finished. And the work is never quite finished. The moment the body goes still, the mind accelerates, running the list, scanning for what was missed, rehearsing tomorrow's difficult conversations before today's are done. Rest for them doesn't feel like relief. It feels like exposure. Like the moment you stop moving is exactly the moment something sneaks up behind you. So they don't fully stop. Even lying down. Even with the lights off and the house quiet and genuinely nothing left that needs doing tonight. The engine stays running. Just in case. You know what's strange? The behavior that comes out of all this is one of the most consistently misread things about these people. They cancel plans last minute. They go quiet for whole weekends. They're physically present at a dinner or a gathering, but something about them is clearly elsewhere, in the room but not quite reachable. And the people around them read this as flakiness or coldness or a quiet indication that they don't actually want to be there. But trace it back. When your nervous system has been running at low grade high alert for years, not dramatically, not in any way you could point to on a chart, just a constant background hum you stopped noticing a long time ago, social interaction isn't neutral. It costs something real. Every conversation requires a background layer of reading and monitoring. Every new room requires a quick, automatic assessment of the emotional weather. Every gathering, even a good one full of people you genuinely love, carries a small but measurable tax on the system. Someone who grew up inside genuine, consistent, emotional safety can socialize and recover at the same time. They come home from a party feeling refueled, the people gave them something back, someone who didn't have to choose, and when they're already running a deficit, the math makes itself. They cancel, they go quiet, they send the apologetic text and close the curtains and feel guilty about both. It's not that they don't care, it's that they don't have what it costs. And they've spent years with no good way to explain that without sounding like something is fundamentally wrong with them. But here's what's fascinating. These same people, the ones who cancel, who disappear, who look perpetually like they're running on fumes, are often the most formidably capable people you'll encounter when something real is actually at stake. They show up for genuine crises. The 2 a.m. phone call, the emergency that needs someone calm and clear and already 3 steps ahead of the problem. The answer. They've been doing that since they were young, often for other people before anyone thought to do it for them. They're simultaneously the most resilient people in the room and the most quietly depleted. That is a paradox, and it's a real one. The same system that makes them extraordinary when things fall apart is the exact system that makes an ordinary Tuesday afternoon feel like running through sand. The vigilance that reads a room in under 3 seconds. The anticipation that identifies the problem before anyone else sees it forming. The reliability that makes people lean on them without ever thinking about what that leaning actually costs. That's not a character flaw. That was a skill, built under conditions that genuinely required it. Earned through years of paying close attention when close attention mattered. The capacity that makes them indispensable is the same capacity quietly draining them. You can't pull them apart. Same wiring, same cost, same person. And here's the thing about how these people relate to systems and institutions. They don't trust the title. They trust the demonstrated track record, earned, observable, consistent reliability that they respect. Credentials on a wall mean almost nothing on their own. They've watched systems fail them in specific, memorable ways. Medical appointments where years of accumulated exhaustion got reframed as generalized anxiety and sent home with a pamphlet and a suggestion to try cutting back on caffeine. Workplaces that celebrated the person who never took a sick day publicly, loudly, held them up as the example, right up until that person quietly fell apart. A wellness industry that has repackaged the same unresolved problem in progressively more expensive containers. Weighted blankets, breathwork retreats, sunrise alarm clocks that cost more than a week of groceries. None of it wrong exactly, just aimed consistently at the surface of the thing rather than the root of it. And underneath all of it sits an economic reality that rarely gets stated plainly. Rest has become a premium product. The people who most need genuine recovery, the ones carrying decades of accumulated stress load, running on a nervous system that hasn't fully downshifted since childhood, are frequently the ones with the least time, money, and structural room to pursue it. The optimization conversation is happening at an altitude of financial security and schedule flexibility they haven't reached yet. They don't distrust the information, they distrust whether any of it was ever actually designed with them in the room. The second pattern, and this one gets misread more consistently than almost anything else, is the inability to receive care without bracing quietly for the condition that must be attached to it somewhere. From the outside, it looks like fierce self-sufficiency, independence, The person who is already saying they're fine before you have finished asking. But it isn't a personality trait. It's a learned defensive posture built across years of care that arrived inconsistently. Care that had invisible conditions. Care that disappeared without warning or explanation and left you wondering what you did to make it stop. The nervous system reached the only logical conclusion available. Don't lean, because leaning is how you get caught off guard when the support moves. A 2021 review published in Psychoneuroendocrinology found that individuals with elevated allostatic load, the cumulative physiological cost of prolonged stress exposure, showed disrupted cortisol regulation patterns regardless of total sleep quantity obtained. The body was resting. The underlying chemistry was still running its own agenda. This bleeds most visibly into how these people parent. They become extraordinary in specific ways. They give their children the consistency, the presence, the emotional permission they never received themselves. They build carefully, deliberately, with real intention, an environment they never actually got to inhabit themselves. But they struggle to model receiving care. Giving it comes naturally, fluently, almost automatically. They've been doing it their whole lives. Accepting it, sitting with it, believing it's real and not about to be quietly withdrawn, that part still costs them something every single time. The quiet irony is that they're building in their children exactly what they never got to keep for themselves, passing forward the thing they still haven't figured out how to hold. And now, they're watching a world that has language for everything, every pattern named, every adaptive response categorized and given a framework. Entire online communities built around experiences that these people lived through alone in silence, with nothing but the low, persistent hum of a feeling that life was somehow harder for them than it seemed to be for people standing right next to them. There's genuine relief in that. Real, uncomplicated relief. The words exist now. Someone finally said it out loud. That matters more than it sounds like it should. And underneath the relief, something quieter. A kind of grief for the version of themselves that needed those words at 13, at 19, at 26, and didn't have them, who just kept moving because moving was the only option available. They gave their children permission they never received. They built environments they never inhabited. And they carry a quiet, non-bitter worry that the next generation is learning to name pain without learning to move through it. That the language is arriving before the resilience. What they gave, they mostly gave without being asked. What they built without a blueprint. They just figured it out the way they figure everything out, by staying aware, staying steady, and trusting that eventually it would be enough. They don't say this much. They just notice it. The way they notice most things, carefully, privately, without making it anyone else's problem to carry. Think of a person who lives like this as a root system, underground, invisible from the surface, doing the stabilizing, structural, nourishing work that makes everything above it possible, without ever being the thing that gets seen or pointed to or thanked. The tree gets noticed, photographed, talked about. The roots don't, but remove the roots and the tree is gone before the next growing season. That is what these people are in the structures around them. The underground infrastructure, the thing that holds quietly while everything above it shifts and sways and occasionally falls. They stabilize without requesting acknowledgement for it. And that, the not asking, the continuing anyway, the just holding through seasons nobody is watching, might be the single most defining thing about them. Sit with that for a moment. Think about the people in your life who always seem a little tired, who show up anyway, who are fine, always fine, reliably fine, even when you can sense they're probably not. They might not need better sleep hygiene or a new supplement or a tighter morning routine. They might just need you to make the room feel safe enough that they can finally, genuinely, fully stop. If something in this reached you, subscribe. There's more of this kind of conversation coming. Unhurried, honest, the things that actually matter and rarely get said directly. And if this found someone today who needed to hear it, send it to them. That might be the most useful thing you do all week.